Hello everyone and welcome to Harv's World for part 8 of the Ravenport walkthrough for beginners. So, since my fields are clear at the moment, I thought now might be a prime opportunity to introduce you to the landscaping tool. Now, you know how bumpy our field is here. You can see it right there, and I promised that we were going to fix this, and it is a little bit advanced, if you will. I'm sure you all can handle it though. Never had any doubt about that. I just wasn't ready for it, to be honest. So I'm going to have you do a couple of things. The first thing I want you to make sure you do is keep or turn autosave off. Keep that turned off. You only want to be able to manually save. And the reason being, because when you work with the landscaping tool, if you don't like what's happened, there's no takebacks. So the only way to reset your field or reset whatever area you're working on is to quit the game without saving and then come back in and start over. Or start from wherever you saved last. So that's the biggest thing. Make sure that autosave is turned off. And actually, that's really the only thing we need to do. Now, in order to get to the landscaping tool, we're going to open our shop menu like usual, and this shovel on the end, this is landscaping. So if I click on Start Landscaping, I have two options at the top. I have sculpting and I have painting. And I have a lot of different options in my controls menu. We're just going to focus on the basics. You can go out and play with this as much as you like. I suggest doing it on a map that you're not planning on playing, or just any random map. Start as farm manager, buy a plot of land, and play with it to your heart's content. Now, keep in mind, every time you click a button and make a change, this is costing money. So, with that said, I've got my cursor here, my green bubble, and I can change the size of this, and this is the left and right arrow keys on my keypad. It will get that large and shrink down to that small. And that will determine how much ground obviously is affected every time you click your mouse. Now, I'm going to start small just to show you what these different things do. If I left click my mouse, it will raise up the terrain. See how that raised up just a little bit? And I can keep doing that and it will keep coming up. If I right click, that will lower the terrain. And it will keep lowering until you've got a pit in the ground. Like so. And if you'll notice, my money keeps going down every time I do this. And you'll also notice, as I said, this destroyed our field. This is no longer field, so we can't plant anything. We'll have to replow and relime this. Okay, the next thing we can do is smooth. What smooth does is it adjusts the ground so that it smooths it out. So that it starts taking a lesser slope. We've got these pits here. Smooth will smooth them out so they're not so dramatic, like so. We also have flatten. Flatten is very powerful and will cost you a lot of money in a very short amount of time. If you want to flatten your field, completely flatten your field, this is what flatten is going to do for you. And that's both mouse buttons. I'm going to pick a level right about there. That's where I want to start. And as I start moving across, you see how that's flattening that out. And it will, as long as you hold your mouse buttons down, will flatten everything to that level. But this is a very, very expensive process to flatten that much. If we go up this field, look how deep. It's forcing it to flatten just a ridiculous amount. And that's costing a lot of money. A whole lot of money. So that's what flatten does. Now we can change the shape of our brush into a square. It's up to you really. The round brush is nicer for detail work. The square brush will give you more square edges, like so. That's something else to keep in mind. Now, changing our terrain isn't the only thing we can do with the landscaping brush. We can swap into painting mode. And in order to do that, we hit X. And if you notice in the lower right hand corner, now I've got a ground type. And that's showing me what type of texture, if I click on the ground, it's going to give me. So that's kind of a wet dirt texture. And if I hit the tab key, it will change textures, and that's sort of a stony, almost asphalt looking texture. And there's a bunch of them. There's a standard dirt texture right there. Sand. And like I said, there's a whole bunch of these. Grass. Now, one thing to note about these grassy textures, this is grass that will grow. That's definitely gravel. Stone. A different color stone. Dry sand. I think the other was wet sand. Oh, what was this one? Kind of like a washed up kind of sand. Oh, there's your wet sand right there. That's definitely wet sand. And then we're back to our wet dirt again. Going back to the grassy textures, you know, for example, we've got this grassy area right here. And I've told you, you can harvest all the grass you want. Now, painting isn't terribly expensive, so you can kind of paint to your heart's content. But, you know, this area right here, say I don't like these bushes and all these weeds sitting around, I want to make it more of a nice grass, then I can just paint over all that and turn it into grass, like so. Another thing is, if you want more square field edges, you can come in with this painting tool and paint a nice straight line down the edge of your field, however you want. If you want it to be a dirt line, you know, you want to have an earthy edge to your field, or even our standard dirt texture, like this one. You know, if you just want nice square edges on your field, that's a good way to get them. So that is the painting tool. And it will paint different kinds of grass. So this is kind of a more lush, loamy grass, and then the one I just painted is more of a light green grass. But all of this grass will grow and can be mowed. So if you wanted to paint all of this in, and we can do this in a bigger way, like so, turn all of this into grass. And it's costing us a few hundred, maybe a few $1,000s, but not too terrible. So that's something else that you can do with the landscaping tool. Just like so. Okay, so that's a bit of an introduction to the landscaping tool and what you can do. Now I'm going to reset my game because this is not saved, and we're going to go in and I'm going to patch up this field. I'll be right back. Okay, so I am back. You can see my field has been reset to what it was before I started this explanation. Now, fixing the field. So if we go back into our landscaping tool like so, and I definitely want to be in the sculpting mode, and for this I'm going to make my brush as big as I possibly can because I want it to smooth over a long area, and we are going to only do smoothing. That's all we want to do is smooth. And for me, that's my middle mouse button, my mouse wheel. And I know I've got some rough spots right through here, so if I get right in there about on the level I want it to be and start smoothing, you can now see that it's making these jagged edges into a nice gentle slope, and it's taking out all of those rough bumps. As you see how that has smoothed out dramatically, And if you just keep holding your mouse button down as you cross over this, it will keep adjusting it just a little bit, smooth it out even more, like so. Now I know that through here there's a pretty steep dip. So if I come back across here, I can start smoothing that dip out just a little bit so that it's not quite so sharp. And that's going to keep going. As long as I hold my mouse button down, it's going to continue to smooth this. I could keep smoothing it until it comes into just one nice sweeping field right down to the lower level. It's already much, much better. You can see that. So it's not quite as jagged. I can also see right over here there's a pretty good dip, so I could smooth that out and adjust it just a little bit. Now that looks better already. Like so. You see how it continually destroys the field as I'm doing this. So anything that we plowed is no longer field. Obviously, I think that's pretty self-explanatory at this point. I think we had a little bit over here that was a little bit difficult to get over. And there was a lip down here that the tractors didn't like, or the implements didn't care too much for starting out on, so I can smooth that out a little bit too. And again, you can do this as much as you want, anywhere you want. Just keep in mind, we're going to have to replow this field now. But it will be much easier to work on. And you can see this has cost about $2,000 at this point. So not too bad if you're just doing a little bit of smoothing. I don't know about you, but I think that's starting to look pretty decent. I think we've got a field that's going to be a lot easier to work on at this point. We've got land that's going to be a lot easier to work on at this point. Yeah. And that, my friends, is the landscaping tool. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot you can do. It just depends on your level of creativity and how you want to use it. You know, one thing that I would probably consider doing is adding more grass and less weeds, because we can take advantage of that grass. Especially since we're going to plow this field over again anyway. You know, edge out this with grass right here. Make this into real harvestable, usable grass. Not that it wasn't before, but it has an awful lot of weeds and bushes in it that we wouldn't necessarily be able to take very good advantage of. So, you know, we've got this. I do so own that land. What are you talking about? Okay, well, it wants to be a little bit difficult, but still. Now, if you've got a field that you don't want to mess with, you just have to be careful around it. Don't get too close. We don't have to on this field because it's got pretty decent grass on it already. But I can come right down here, get rid of all these weeds and bushes, up through here. You know, any of this land that we own this whole hillside. All of this down here around the house. Who in their right mind would let so many weeds and bushes grow up around their house? Come on. So all this paint, I mean, you know, I've painted quite a bit here, but this is still only costing me a couple $1,000, so painting's not bad. Get rid of all this nasty stuff, just turn it into nice grass. About like so. You can even paint inside of here if you want to dress up all this junk pile. That's totally up to you. But, you know, when you get off of this original farm, you get out and start doing your own farms, your own kind of thing. You know, this will be really helpful when you want to design your own farm. You just got a plot of land and you don't have any buildings on it, and you're ready to start placing some. You can use this to smooth the area so that it's easier to place. You can use it to dress it up, make it however you want, things of that nature. So a lot you can do with this little tool once you get some practice with it. And it does take some practice, but it's not so terrible that, like I said, you can figure it out. We can fill all this in. Nice little horse pasture. About like so. Smooth off any rough edges. You know, well, whatever you want to do. It's really up to you. So, at this point, you know how to run a plow. You know how to fix this field. And I'll look just a little bit more, because I see a dip that I think really could use a little more attention right through there. And I think it might have just been the light. Anyway, this is going to be a short part, because I'm not going to go back in and replow this whole field and everything just for the sake of this tutorial, because it really doesn't matter. You know how to do that. We've already covered it. Now, keep in mind, you don't have to do this. If you just want to leave well enough alone and not have to replow this field, that's up to you. But this is how you would fix it. So that's it for part 8 of this little tutorial series I'm doing on Ravenport Farm. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'm always happy to answer them. And if you found this educational, entertaining, or otherwise, do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. And until next time, take care.